After this, she'll never look at black coffee the same way again. A young married couple planned to go out for dinner, so they hired a babysitter for their daughter. But something horrifying happened soon after. Something no one could expect. The babysitter found the couple's daughter sleeping, so she went downstairs to watch TV. Then she heard a loud bang and the phone started ringing. A cackling voice answered, black coffee, I'm in the bedroom." The babysitter ran upstairs and found the couple's daughter in a black shawl. She quietly took it off and went back downstairs. Then the phone rang again. Black coffee, I'm in the kitchen, I've got the baby." She ran into the kitchen and found the couple's daughter in a red wig, so she went around the house and disconnected all the phones. That's when her cell phone rang. Black coffee, I'm in the front yard." As soon as the babysitter went outside, she saw the couple's daughter sitting on the windowsill, wearing the black shawl and the red wig, cackling loudly. Then the babysitter felt a sharp pain in her back. When the couple came back from dinner, they found their daughter in the front yard eating her babysitter, and the dad said, "Oh God, not again." Do you know the dark origins behind the fairy tales we all grew up hearing? Today we're going to talk about the original scary story behind the Beauty and the Beast. So we all know that Belle ended up living in the castle with the Beast. But what you probably didn't know is how Belle's two evil sisters had a dark secret plan. A plan that would lead to devastating consequences for Belle. Belle had made a deal with the Beast that she would be allowed to go home to see her family 1 week at a time. For some context, here Belle's father used to be very rich, but then their family went into debt and pretty much lost everything. So Belle's sisters were extremely jealous that Belle got to live in a castle and have all of these luxuries. So they tried to convince Belle to stay with her family for much longer than a week, but not because they missed her and wanted to be with her. They wanted her to intentionally go against the deal that she made with the Beast, so that he would be angry and eat her when she returned. But of course, this entire subplot of the evil scheming sisters were not included in the version we all grew up hearing. If you want to know more about the dark origins behind these popular fairy tales, then let me know which one I should do next and follow to see the rest of the series. Thanks for watching. Do you know the dark origins behind the fairy tales we all grew up hearing? Okay, it's finally time to talk about Cinderella, which I've kind of been avoiding because the original Cinderella is really crazy. So we all know about Cinderella's fairy godmother. But in the original, things aren't so simple. Cinderella's mother passed away, so she plants a tree by her grave, where she goes to pray every day, until one day she finds her dress there, along with enchanted birds helping her. It's interesting because this part implies that Cinderella may have been a young witch. Another disturbing part that isn't included in the version that we all know is just how creepy the prince was, because Cinderella didn't just accidentally lose her shoe. The prince covers the steps in sticky substance, so Cinderella wouldn't be able to leave. He literally tried to trap her in the castle with it. And when the prince came with the shoe that she lost, Cinderella's evil stepsisters took it to the next level. Their feet were larger and couldn't fit into the shoe, so the evil stepmother ordered the sisters to cut off their toes and heel. But that wasn't all. They also got their eyes picked out by doves. But which fairy tale should I talk about next? Follow to see the rest of the series. Do you know the dark origins behind the fairy tales we all grew up hearing? Today we're talking about the original scary story of Hansel and Gretel, which was actually a reflection of the real horrors of the Great Famine of 1315, when many people took extreme measures to survive. It's during this time that Hansel and Gretel's parents abandoned them in the woods. It was only in later editions that the mother became the evil stepmother character. Hansel takes breadcrumbs and leaves them behind, but they're eaten by birds, so they wander into the cottage built of candy where they meet the witch. The next morning, the witch locks up Hansel and makes Gretel feed him a lot of food, while she gets only crab shells. Once the witch decides that Hansel is ready to be eaten, she makes Gretel open the oven to see if it's hot enough. Gretel pretends to be confused, so the witch has to demonstrate. When the witch leans into the oven, Gretel pushes her in and shuts the door. They take the witch's belongings and find their way home. But the interesting part is, after the witch is defeated, Hansel and Gretel's mother dies of unknown causes, suggesting a kind of connection between the witch and the mother. One survived by abandoning her children, and the other survived by eating others, both in some ways motivated by desperation. But which fairy tale should I talk about next? Follow to see the rest of the series. Do you know the dark origins behind the fairy tales we all grew up hearing? In this series, I'm going to draw each fairy tale and tell you the original scary stories they were based on. First, we have the Grimm's version of Snow White. Now, we all know how the story begins. The evil queen was jealous of Snow White's beauty, so she banished her into the woods. But the evil queen actually wanted to eat Snow White's liver and lungs with salt and pepper. The huntsman spared her and gave a boar's liver and lungs to the queen, which she eats. But the darkest part, which you might not know about, is how Snow White actually got revenge. Snow White and the prince got married and they invited the evil queen. Or should I say, tricked the evil queen into attending because they knew that she'd feel jealous enough to do it. And the evil queen actually fell for it. She arrived at Snow White and the prince's wedding, only to find out that they put a pair of iron shoes into burning coals until it heated up and glowed bright red. Then they placed it in front of the evil queen and made her wear those shoes until she danced to her death. Which definitely is not the same ending that I remember growing up hearing about. So let me know which fairy tale you want me to cover next. And follow if you want to see the next one, and the rest of the series. Do you know the dark origins behind the fairy tales we all grew up hearing? Today we're going to talk about one of my most requested stories. Here's the original scary story of the Little Mermaid, which, my gosh, is so much sadder than the one we're all used to. First of all, Ariel's sisters were basically sirens. They lured sailors into the water. And the prince, he wasn't particularly a great guy. It's said that he had a lot of, workers who were women in his palace. But Ariel loved the prince, so she goes to Ursula to make a deal. She would give up her voice for legs. But every step she takes on land would be extremely painful, and she will only survive if the prince falls in love with her. But in the original, things don't go as planned. The prince ends up marrying another woman, so Ursula gives Ariel a new choice to make. This time, if Ariel wants to live, she has to take the prince out. So basically, Ariel breaks into the prince's palace, where him and his new wife was, but she couldn't go through with the deal. Then she dissolves into foam. But since she was a good person, her spirit floats up into the sky and is able to carry out good deeds for 300 years before going to heaven. So yeah, not exactly the same story as the one we all know. But which fairy tale should I talk about next? Follow to see the rest. The series. If someone asked to put makeup on you, don't do what she did. One night, a girl in Japan was walking home at night when she came across an elderly woman. It seemed like the woman was walking around aimlessly. She was wearing an oversized hat and had a cane. While she had wrinkles on her face, she also wore quite a bit of makeup. The young girl didn't think much of it until the old woman came up to her and asked if she wanted to try some of her makeup powder. She said that she loved using it and it would make the young girl so much more beautiful. She didn't want to be rude, so she agreed. What could be the harm? But she could have never imagined the horrifying consequences this could possibly lead to. The moment the white powder was applied to her face, she felt a deep burning sensation. Then she felt the flesh on her face fall off. The old woman was the face powder hag, a creature from Japanese urban legend who tricks young girls into putting on her makeup. When the young girls' faces begin to rot and fall off until there's nothing left but a skull, she will steal their flesh for herself. What she does with it is still a mystery. Did you and your parents ever play games together? When Jasmine was younger, something strange happened. One night, her mother checked up on her while she was sleeping, but it wasn't the way that you usually think. She woke up in the middle of the night with a strange feeling that someone or something had been watching her. She looked up and saw that her mother was just standing there, smiling and staring at her with her eyes unnaturally wide open. Jasmine asked what she was doing up in the middle of the night, and her mother replied, "I'm watching you sleep." Jasmine knew something was wrong. They kept staring at each other, and neither of them blinked. Jasmine somehow knew they were playing a game together, a game to see who would blink first. But what would happen if Jasmine blinked? She was terrified to find out. This figure in her bedroom was not her mother. It was in her eyes. It held something terrifying, something inhuman. Soon, this version of her mother began moving backwards, without blinking, turning around, or breaking eye contact. She just moved back until she reached Jasmine's closet, then opened the door and stepped inside, as if she'd been staying there this entire time. Jasmine kept staring at the closet, and without breaking eye contact, ran to her parents' room. There, she saw her mother on her bed, sleeping peacefully. Just like broadcasting. Do you believe in coincidences? Once something strange happened in this small Russian town. Some people thought it was just a coincidence, but others were certain that there was something more terrifying involved. There was a girl who lived with her parents at a pig farm. Let's just call her Alina. Alina's house was next to an old man who never spoke to anyone. But whenever Alina would be outside in the fields, she noticed this man staring at her. This made her feel really creeped out. But one night, things escalated into something terrifying. It was very late when Alina heard strange scratching noises on her bedroom window. She got up and turned on the light and screamed in terror. There was a huge pig banging at her window. Then from the top, it tried to pull itself up and into Alina's room. Alina jumped out of bed and her parents rushed in. The pig attacked Alina and tried to bite her, but Alina's father ended up striking it in the back with an axe to defend his family. Finally, the pig jumped out the window and escaped into the night. But the next morning, the unimaginable happened. Something no one can explain. The strange neighbor was found in the woods with an axe in his back. And Alina and her family never told anyone about what happened the night before. Alina and her family never told anyone about what happened the night before. If you've ever used a public bathroom, don't do what she did. Once there was a girl named Angelica, and she was hiding a terrifying secret. One day after using a public bathroom, she went to wash her hands. That's when someone came out of the stalls and tripped and fell in the middle of the floor. They quickly got up and said, "Wow, I'm so clumsy. I can't believe I tripped over nothing." But then something strange happened. The next person who came out of the stalls also tripped over at that exact same place, even when there was nothing there. This person got up and said, "I could have sworn I tripped over something. Maybe it was just my imagination." Angelica replied, "Maybe. I'm just glad you're okay. Be careful next time." Because she couldn't tell any of them the truth. She couldn't tell them that she was the only one who could see it. A woman's body lying in the middle of the floor that everyone tripped over. If someone knocks on your door this Christmas, don't do what she did. Once there was a girl named Evelyn who was waiting for her mom to come home for Christmas. She was decorating their tree when she heard a knock at the door. But she could have never expected the horrifying things this would lead to. She asked, "Who is it?" But it was a man's voice that answered, "I'm cold and tired. Let me in." But Evelyn looked through the keyhole and saw that it was a stranger wearing a Santa Claus costume. Feeling uneasy, Evelyn said, "My mom's not here, please leave." But this man began banging at the door. "That's what I was hoping you'd say, Evelyn. I'm looking for you. Open the door." At this point, Evelyn was terrified. Who is this man and how does he know her name? Then she saw him reach inside his red coat and pull out something shiny and try to jam it through the door. All of a sudden, the knocking stopped. When her mother came home, she saw that their door had been pried open. She rushed in to look for Evelyn, only to scream in horror. Perched on top of their Christmas tree was Evelyn's head. If you're ever studying late at night, don't do what she did. One night, a girl was studying alone in the library. It was around 2 in the morning, so she was getting pretty tired. But as soon as she shifted her books around, she noticed something strange. It was a website URL written on the desk. This made her curious, so she went on one of the computers in the library and typed in the website. But what she saw sent chills down her spine. It was a photo of a woman walking down a busy street, but it looked like it was taken from a distance, and the woman didn't know that she was being photographed. This made the girl feel uneasy, so she shut down the computer, grabbed her things, and left. But the next day, she became more curious. She thought it must be some kind of a joke, but she was too tired to notice, so she went back and typed in the website again. But this time, the image had turned into something terrifying. It was the same woman lying on the floor with a knife in her chest. The girl shut off the computer and called the police. After the call, she opened the computer again, but the photo had changed. It was now a photo of a girl in a library taken from the back. It was a photo of her looking at the website. Underneath the photo was the caption, "You are my next internet star." If you've ever thought about getting your ears pierced, don't do what she did. This is the urban legend about a girl in Japan who tried to do it, then ended up with horrifying consequences. So this young girl really wanted to get her ears pierced. After some pleading with her parents, they finally agreed and gave her some money to go do it. But instead, the girl kept the money and decided to pierce them herself and let her friend help her. They heated up a large needle and went for it one day. It was painful, but in the end, she was happy she could finally wear earrings. However, this wouldn't last long. One day in school, she felt an intense pain in her left ear. Her earlobe was itchy, and by the end of the day, she had a headache. She went into the bathroom and saw her ear was very inflamed. Then she looked closer and saw a piece of white string sticking out of her new piercing. She picked and pulled at it, which only made the string longer. Now it was hanging out of her earlobe. The string seemed to be endless. The more she pulled, the longer it got. Finally fed up, she took a pair of scissors and cut the string. Suddenly, everything went black. There was a burning pain in her ears and her eyes. She began to scream. In the hospital, it was revealed that it wasn't a piece of string at all. She had pulled out a piece of her optic nerve and cut it. She would be blind for the rest of her life. She was blind for the rest of her life. If you've ever used face cream, don't do what she did. This is the horrifying story of a woman who never believed a jar of face cream could change her life forever. Oiwa was a beautiful Japanese woman married to a rich and powerful man. Their marriage seemed perfect to others until one horrifying day. This is where Ome comes in. She was jealous of Oiwa's beauty and in love with her husband, so Ome began an evil plan. She made a poisonous face cream that caused Oiwa's eyes to droop and her hair to fall out. She then gifted it to Oiwa, who began using it every day without a second thought, not even checking her own reflection. Now disgusted by her, her husband began an affair with Ome. But things only get worse from here. In ancient Japan, Oiwa's husband couldn't find a way to divorce her, so he ordered one of his friends to essay Oiwa so that she could be framed for being disloyal to him. But the friend couldn't go through with it, so out of mercy, he hands Oiwa a mirror and tells her the truth. Shocked by what the face cream did to her, she takes the sword and unalives herself. In her last breath, she curses her husband's name. Soon her husband and Ome got married, but on their wedding night, the ghost of Oiwa appeared before them. No matter where they went, Oiwa would always follow them, staring at them with her ghostly eyes, haunting them forever. If you've ever used face cream, don't do what she did. This is the horrifying story of a woman who never believed a jar of face cream could change her life forever. Oiwa was a beautiful Japanese woman married to a rich and powerful man. Their marriage seemed perfect to others until one horrifying day. This is where Ome comes in. She was jealous of Oiwa's beauty and in love with her husband, so Ome began an evil plan. She made a poisonous face cream that caused Oiwa's eyes to droop and her hair to fall out. She then gifted it to Oiwa, who began using it every day without a second thought, not even checking her own reflection. Now disgusted by her husband began an affair with Ome. But things only get worse from here. In ancient Japan, Oiwa's husband couldn't find a way to divorce her, so he ordered one of his friends to essay Oiwa so that she could be framed for being disloyal to him. But the friend couldn't go through with it, so out of mercy, he hands Oiwa a mirror and tells her the truth. Shocked by what the face cream did to her, she takes the sword and unalives herself. In her last breath, she curses her husband's name. Soon, her husband and Ome got married. But on their wedding night, the ghost of Oiwa appeared before them. No matter where they went, Oiwa would always follow them, staring at them with her ghostly eyes, haunting them forever. This man thought he got away with something terrible he did as a kid, but he was wrong. Wanzer was a rich businessman. Let's just call him Derek. Derek was walking home from work when a boy ran up to him and started pulling on his suit. He said, "Mister, give me 1 penny." Derek shouted, "Leave me alone," and walked away. The boy was left outside freezing in the cold. The next day, the same boy was standing on the street and said, "Mister, give me 1 penny." Derek was annoyed. He threw a penny at him and said, There you go, now leave me alone." But he could have never known who this boy actually was. This time, when he got home, he started feeling uneasy. Something about these interactions felt a bit weird to him. He went to bed, tried to fall asleep, but as soon as he closed his eyes, he heard a voice right up against his ear say, "Mister, give me 1 penny." Derek jumped out of bed. His wife told him to calm down, so he tried to. There was no one else in the room, but something was wrong. Derek began to remember what he did. When he was a young boy, him and his friends had done something horrible. Terrified, he went up to the attic and found his old yearbook. Then flipping through the pages, he saw a photo. Derek thought, how is this possible? He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Follow for part 2. Thanks for watching. This man thought he got away with something terrible he did as a kid, but he was wrong. After Derek ignored the boy in the street asking him for 1 penny, he went home. But he always felt a bit strange about their interactions. Then he went into the attic and found his old yearbook. While flipping through, he found a photo that would haunt him forever. When he was younger, him and his friends were bullies, and they had done something unspeakable to a boy. After beating him, Derek and his friends threw him in the river without a second thought. The boy never showed up to class the next day, but Derek and his friends assumed that he moved away. How was it possible that the boy Derek bullied years ago was the same boy asking him for a penny in the street now? Even though Derek grew up to be a successful businessman, he held the yearbook in his hands, horrified at how his past would come back to haunt him. Within the next few days, Derek took out his life savings. He brought the bag of money out to the boy and said, "Here's every penny I have. Now please leave me alone." But the ghost boy just looked at him blankly. Then, in an instant, his face turned into a terrifying smile. He said, "No, mister, that's not all." As the ghost boy reached into Derek's chest and pulled out his heart, the ghost boy was so shocked that he couldn't even breathe. Have you ever seen someone with extremely long hair? Well, a man from Yamata village in Japan saw a woman with very long hair nearly down to her knees. But things were much stranger than they seemed. He was walking down a narrow street when this woman approached him, and as he walked closer, he realized that she'd been smiling the whole time. But this wasn't a normal friendly smile. There was something strange about it that made him feel creeped out. But he smiled back anyways because he found her beautiful. This would be his last mistake. In that moment, her hair rose up and stuck to him. Strands of hair hooked onto his clothes. He ran as fast as he could, terrified. He got home quickly, locked the door, but couldn't fall asleep all night. The next morning, he felt a bit better, so he opened the door to try to go to work. But he saw that on the other side, his door was covered in scratches. He had run into Hariona, the long-haired woman from Japanese urban legend whose hair can turn into hooks. She's also known as a smiling woman, as she usually smiles at people from the shadows, and also specifically targets men who smile back at her. Comment below what you would do if you ran into her and follow to see more. This man's wife left him, but not for the reasons he thought. Once there was a couple who just got married in Paris. They were very happy together, but the wife had one secret she didn't tell her husband yet. She had a birthmark on her face. She'd been wearing makeup to cover it, but she thought once she showed her husband, she would know whether he truly loved her. So after they got married, she took off her makeup and showed him. He was surprised, but he wasn't going to let that change anything. However, the next morning, his wife was gone. Her husband thought that she must have felt upset due to how surprised he looked when he saw her birthmark. Or maybe she had second thoughts. After months of getting no reply, he finally gave up on trying to look for her. He was heartbroken, but after a few years, he got a new job in a different city. He wanted a fresh start in life, but things didn't go as planned. He came across a strange-looking circus called the House of Oddities. This made him very curious, so he went in. But what he saw inside would shock him. Among the other circus acts, he saw a twisted woman rocking back and forth, looking terrified. He screamed as he recognized the birthmark on her face,